answer that. So.
Exactly. I disagree. Hey now.
Then I lost 20 pounds. You really would.
Well, it's getting 50 year life. Don't make three anymore. So just
You
me.
know, I'm not sure the breaker's blowing in that.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you said
I
that.
think she might be on strike. I'm not sure.
I got home last night and I was gone most of the week. And then I was all excited. I was going to get this big meal. I couldn't.
And you failed it.
It was not good. Well, yeah. And you take it on all the time.
She is good because she keeps, make sure every time she goes out, she makes sure that her tanks are the gas burn water, whatever. So that gets you through.
You know, mac and cheese.
Is it?
It's like thick and creamy.
The
He
white,
said, to me, "Well, where's my meat?" I'm like,
Sounds like my husband. Oh, hot dog in there.
like, what the other hamburger?
the white's really good. We had that.
Yeah, I remember. Yes.
That's the last time I really competed.
Everyone's dropping my fries.
Really,
Yeah.
you picked up three of them. But it's
Yeah, 3 was Connie Nealon.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
we're not in the film.
I've never actually played it. Yeah.
What happened to Dunn? Yeah, I think it's self-abuse probably, or anything.
I probably, I tried. Stuff from Martha, I'm pretty, I'm gonna check it out. So it's like, the white one, already, it's kind of like alpha chicken.
It is. Please, on this one. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our guests. First thing we have is the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
If there's no additions or corrections, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Okay, next is the approval of the minutes from last week.
I thought the minutes read well, and if there are no corrections or additions to those minutes, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 21st.
I'll second.
Been moved and second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Okay, first thing we have on the agenda is review of the county health services. I'll turn that over to you, Becky.
Okay, I have some handouts, but I only made enough for the board, so I don't know if there needs to be more copies, but if you,
I'm sure we can.
there
provide
are
more copies.
little
I can go upstairs and make a few.
packets there.
That's not one packet.
Yeah, there's a few different things that, it's just kind of information to keep, to look over. Yeah, so the reason I'm here today is representing the Board of Health. I've been on the Board of Health for 17 years, and actually I'm one of those few individuals that I willingly volunteered to be on the board. I know you don't get that too often with many of the county boards anymore, but I have a really strong interest in public health. Before I got on the board, I worked for 4 years in preventive medicine and public health at the University of Kansas, and did a lot of work all throughout that state on workforce leadership and development. So I've had a strong interest, and I even, back in 2002, was selected by the CDC to attend National Public Health Leadership Institute. That was a week-long training at University of North Carolina. So I have more than 20 years experience in this area, with a good understanding. I feel very comfortable saying that, with a good understanding of what the distinction is between public health and healthcare and how they work together to try to improve the health of the community. I also have experience on the healthcare side in hospital on the administrative team. I worked in local hospitals for about 10 years. From that angle, saw how public health could complement services in that way. And I've always just, even in the last 8 years where I've just worked as a consultant with different hospitals, really try to look at how public health strategies can help improve health and meet health goals overall. The main thing though, but with what I'm going to talk about today, I just want to make sure that there is that distinction, that understanding of what public health is versus healthcare. And public health is all encompassing with environmental health, public health nursing, different strategies where you're looking at populations. So it's that term population-based medicine is applied with public health a lot, where you're looking at interventions or education or outreach so that you can impact the most people possible to increase life expectancy for the population as a whole. And healthcare is more individualized assessment of one individual when one person goes into their medical provider's office and they go through their visits that way. That's an individual visit there. That's not looking at the population as a whole. So I think that's just important to remember that public health is always more about prevention, education, outreach, assessment, mobilization of resources. So, and the reason why I'm here today is I just want to give you a little bit of information and talk about the possibility for the Board of Supervisors to look at possibly reviewing all county health services right now. This is something that, and through utilization of recovery center funds. This is something I've been on the Board of Health for 17 years. During that time period, we've talked throughout the years about maybe assessing the resources that we have, our functions, our infrastructure, but there was never funding available to really take a look at that. And so right now, the first handout that I want to look at, the governance functions here, this really falls in line with what a Board of Health member and a Board of Supervisor responsibility is, to really assess your programs that you have right now, look at your resources, look at your infrastructure. And again, that's just something that it takes a little bit of time to do that. Takes a little bit of money, and public health has never had either. So this just feels like a good time period to really, consider that. And I don't want to read through all of these governance functions, but this is just a nice little handout that just reaffirms, as Board of Health members and Board of Health members that are appointed through Board of Supervisors, which ultimately assurance of all public health functions is a Board of Supervisor responsibility to make sure that different programs that are mandated through the state are carried out. So I just wanted to draw your attention to resource stewardship, which is in the middle of the first page. And then on the second page, the continuous improvement. And I'm just going to read through the continuous improvement on the second page, which is routinely evaluate, monitor, and set measurable outcomes for improving community health status and the public health agency's governing body's own ability to meet its responsibilities. This is something that, from my understanding, I don't know when public health nursing was pulled from the county and privatized and had a subcontract with St. Anthony 27 years ago. And environmental health care, you've always been kind of an island on your own since you've been here, correct? And you've been here
Almost 20 years.
yeah. And then home care aides, when that shift occurred, because everything used to be county health services through Carroll County. And then there was, we don't have to go through the history of what occurred almost 30 years ago. But since those changes have happened, there's never been a formal review on if that is still the most appropriate infrastructure for the county. And since there's money coming through that can cover a non-biased third-party assessment like this, I just feel like now is the right time to maybe take a look at that structure and see if there's any way that we can, have even more improved efficiencies. So it's number one, COVID-19 really brought to light all across the country how underfunded and understaffed public health was all across the country. It has been ridiculous how funding has been decreased from public health over the last 10 or 15 years. And it doesn't matter who the administration was. It's nothing political from that regard. But with COVID-19 and seeing everything that fell onto public health shoulders, the government started to kind of step up a little bit and say, this is where we need to start putting a little bit more money in. They got that understanding with childcare too. You saw a huge influx of money through the state of Iowa that was then dispersed out to different childcare centers across the state. So we're kind of seeing that funding is going to come through right now for public health. And so that's why this is really a good time to kind of take a look at how the agencies are working together. There's been a lot of talk nationally about redesigning public health and modernizing public health for at least 5 to 6 years. Those discussions have not gone anywhere, again, because of funding shortfalls. And then as in Iowa, it was starting to ramp up with the public health modernization. But then again, COVID hit, all resources had to go out to the community to really fight COVID and all of the contact tracing and everything else that went along with all the issues with that pandemic, which is still not over, but it's getting better. And another reason too, IDPH and DHS right now are studying a potential merger of those two departments. And that is huge for the state of Iowa if that occurs. It just points again that there is all across in all arenas, whether it be public health or healthcare, there is more emphasis on collaboration, consolidation of resources to try to have increased efficiencies. Like you see this in hospitals and healthcare for the last 8 years or so. There's been more of a push for AC, accountable care organizations, of consolidating resources within different hospitals too. So when you have a standalone hospital right now, that's pretty rare. Most of them are consolidating, and it's for that benefit of trying to have overall increased outcomes, efficiencies, quality, saving money for healthcare. So from my experience in the past with public health, when 9/11 occurred, there was a huge influx of money into fighting bioterrorism and having more emphasis on public health preparedness overall. So you saw a lot of that funding in the years that followed. I think that we are going to see some shifts in funding now because of COVID-19. And so I think now's the time to really put ourselves in a position to be ready and to receive that, or to have more of a strategic plan, to be able to say that we've looked at this from a third-party perspective and to see if there's recommendations. I personally have always felt like we don't have enough public health staff in the county for a county of 20,000, but it's really difficult to compare what Carroll County does to what Crawford or Greene or anybody else, because the programs are different. In Carroll County, some of our programs that you would think are traditional public health programs are under the direction of New Opportunities. So like your maternal and child health, WIC program, those are public health focused. But New Opportunities as a community action agency, when they were organized 30, 40 years ago, that organization of a community action agency was really to fight poverty and to make sure that there was increased access for people that fell below the poverty level. But that's all public health activities in there too. So some counties might have a staff of 15 to 20, but they also probably have the maternal child health, the WIC, family planning, some of those that we don't have underneath the umbrella of Carroll County Public Health. But New Opportunities does report a lot. There's a lot of communication between the Board of Health, and they have many contracts specifically with IDPH, but they still have to get Board of Health approval for some of their contracts to show that collaboration. So what we have right now through Carroll County is environmental health, home care aides, which is what Megan, environmental health is here at the courthouse, home care aides is at the Fricke building, and then as I mentioned, 27 years ago, public health nursing was privatized. It was pulled out of Carroll County Health and then it's subcontracted to St. Anthony. So that is over in the building. Right now, I just feel like it would be good to be proactive and not reactive. Just have a fresh set of eyes to come in and look and see, is this the best arrangement for the county? Is this something, again, are we maximizing our resources to the best of our ability? Do we have the appropriate staffing in place to serve a county of 20,000? Are we offering the appropriate services to reach our public health goals? Are there more things that we could be offering? And again, if you look at the colorful handout here, this is a really nice graphic that has just been updated, I think last year, through CDC. For public health goals, there are 10 essential services that they want met so that communities can protect and promote the health of all people in their community. This just kind of gives a nice overview of what those services are. And if you kind of jump down to number 9 and number 10, number 9, improve and innovate public health functions through ongoing evaluation, research, and continuous quality improvement. And then 10, build and maintain a strong organizational infrastructure for public health. Again, 2 of the essential public health services, what I'm requesting right now to have a review really falls in line with that. And quite frankly, as Board of Health members, we probably haven't done a good job this should have been something 15, 20, for sure, probably every 6 or 7 years, this ongoing evaluation and research should have been occurring. But again, you want to be good stewards of money, and that takes time, takes resources to do something like that. So I think that's why, as we saw our budgets each year shrink, even though we felt like, yes, that would be the right thing to do, it was difficult to justify spending money. But as I mentioned, right now, I just feel like the timing with the Recovery Act funds that will be coming to Carroll County, the timing with the construction here and the space allocation studies that you're doing at the courthouse, if there is an ability to perhaps combine and consolidate resources, now would be the time. Or the assessment might come back and say, everything, as it is right now, even if you are in 3 different locations, it's the best allocation of your resources. And then that's good, reaffirmation too, that we've done our due diligence. We took a look at this strategically, and this is a recommendation that came back. So I guess that's kind of in a nutshell.
I have a quick question, and I don't know if you're able to answer this, but Dean or Jean might be able to. What was the reasoning 27 years ago to separate? Does anybody know? I would like to hear the pros and cons or what their thought process was to pull it from out of the county building.
Well,
You probably know more than you know that history.
I do. Actually, one of my sisters was a public health nurse at the time. It corresponded to a time period where a staff member through the county left and built a home health agency. And I think what occurred is it was a larger public health department at that time. I think there were substantial revenues coming through. The history that I was always told is that when that was pulled, and then when a private home health agency was created, that pulled some of the higher reimbursements that usually came back to the county. And so then what was left was kind of the bare minimum, the public health nursing, which was not as high of a reimbursement, obviously. And so I think the county supervisors at that time looked at the budget and said, oh gosh, all of a sudden we went from here to here, and why do we have this black hole within a year time period? And so I think there was perhaps a little bit of panic with that. And then, the decision was made kind of change some things around and see if anybody wanted to take that on and subcontract. I think in a nutshell.
That's kind of what I always heard.
Yeah, I don't really know the whole history, that was before my time, but I know there was something like that going on.
It was the best option at the time. Or a good option.
Well, yeah.
But I do think it's a mistake on our part for not assessing it.
Mhm.
Yeah, for not looking at, I mean, it's kind of like the tax thing when we do a valuation after 25 years.
Mhm.
It's the same thing. Yeah, and it's so.
So,
what's you're requesting to move forward with this is what you're asking?
to at least be able to put an RFP out, for a consulting agency to be able to be selected. I would feel more comfortable, if it was a third party.
Well, I think it definitely should be
Yeah.
third party.
Mhm. You know, someone with fresh set of eyes and, again, we know of a public consulting group. I know that you guys have used them before. They are the ones that are actually doing the assessment right now with potentially merging IDPH and DHS. So I know they'd be very familiar with IDPH goals, with public health functions. Public group consulting or
Public consulting group, they're doing the ambulance reimbursement, I believe, aren't they, Courtney?
Is that from
That's-
Texas based?
This is Massachusetts based.
Okay. But I
So
said,
we're
that
using,
name of that company is,
yeah,
it's there, but
If you see their emblem, you'll recognize it.
that might be doing our billing, helping right now. I think so.
They're doing that.
At the
They're doing the Medicare reimbursement.
Medicare, yes.
Yeah, so that's the type of stuff they do,
Okay, yep.
you know, so they understand healthcare.
Courtney, in your opinion, we kind of put you on the spot here, that COVID relief money that we haven't spent, would that be something that we could actively use at this point?
I believe so.
I see the correlation, I just want to throw that out there to be
Yeah,
sure,
it's
because
More COVID-related stuff, if you're looking at health services versus, putting automatic door openers.
Exactly. I would think we'd be a little closer to reality with that.
Well,
Yeah, and we do have funds still available for that as well.
And quite frankly, that's why the timing right now, because there is a funding stream there. You know, and there's potential funding that if the report would come back and say, oh, you should add 1 or 2 staff.
So do you know what this would cost roughly a ballpark figure?
That I don't, that's where,
Well, and
You know,
that's why you're only requesting RFP, so.
Exactly,
mhm.
yeah. And we're fortunate enough to come up with 6 more other than PCG to send RFPs to. So we'll have should have a good choice.
But the, the outcomes that just, what I read off to you, 5 that came to the top of my head that, to really drive what we'd be looking for in the RFP would be an assessment to see if there are better ways to maximize our resources throughout the county. Do we have the appropriate staffing in place to serve a county of 20,000? Are we offering the appropriate services? Do we have any holes or gaps in services that we should be providing? Is there a way to streamline processes? And then also, is there a potential to consolidate management of the department programs? So that was just kind of off the top of my head. But obviously, if there are other concerns or ideas that anyone else would, if that feels to cover it all.
Well, I think it's only good that we review programs every once in a while. I mean, that's part of our job, being good stewards, I think. And it's kind of crazy that this hasn't been done in 27 years or 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it all makes sense to do it now, especially like you said, we got funding now.
Mhm.
We look at maybe the police, they justify more staff or whatever.
Well, that's unfortunate too. COVID-19 shed light on a lot of this, and sometimes situations will happen to make it to the table.
Kind of
So,
too bad something's got to happen first to make the other.
And the way the state works, we may go through this whole process and come up with something. And then with IDPH merging with DHS, they may come in and say, you know what? Now we're gonna do this, that, I mean, it always makes me,
over?
it always
That
makes
was
me,
surprising a bit.
it always makes me a little nervous when these things
Yeah,
happen
we're
like
gonna give
this.
it back to the average world.
Where's mental health services in the city? this piece. Do you have any,
Well,
have you seen any track record with anybody else where they fit in?
so that's another one that really, mental health, behavioral health, there's, again, a lot of direction right now to try to be integrating those, to always have the behavioral health focus that's in your traditional healthcare as well. The more integrated healthcare services you can provide, the better. But in a lot of, with public health, they refer to the social determinants of health, different factors in the community that can be predictors of health. And mental health is really a big, behavioral health. If you can treat that, you can have such an impact on crime and drugs and, oh my gosh, there's violence, just so many things. But it's still kind of been an island of its own. And I don't know if eventually, if that's gonna fall under, your county health, public health,
Well, I think once upon a time, there used to be a mental health.
what each county had, yeah.
But now we're part of this bigger region.
Mhm.
And I don't know how that all is going to fit together, but I guess those are all questions that they will find out answers for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, Gene and Courtney and I know that, we had public health here in the county. It was county. We ran our own.
in fact, the
Mental health.
gal that's managing that mental health was from here,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, we used to do our own mental health. I think we,
did a good job of that.
Carroll County was
Yes.
did a very good job. The thing about it, we was supposed to be, the more we get this thing out, we're getting further away from people.
And that's been a topic of conversation several times at our board meetings with that, now they just went to 9 counties. It's like, how spread how are we getting?
But I
Losing
will,
track.
I will say this in the same token, though, I think we're probably one of the better regions.
I think we're.
I mean, there's regions I know that
From what I've been
have
hearing.
big issues. They're falling apart.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions for Becky? So I take it
I appreciate your overall review.
so you're asking for permission to send out an RFP
Mhm.
from the public health?
Well, it'd be through
Or
Carroll
consult,
County,
yeah.
or Board of Health, or Board of Supervisors, Carroll
Yeah.
County, yeah.
Do you have any costs?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's,
How in depth do you want to go? I get,
that's where, we need that feedback from you guys.
well, here's my questions for you. Veterans Affairs are gonna fit in this window?
It's an opportunity if you want to really redesign, a lot of these social services really are public health focused. And especially, if you go back and look at this, you see equity in the middle. And that, I really think the shift now with COVID-19, for the last 10, 15 years, you've heard a lot about, or in the healthcare field, heard a lot about overcoming health disparities, really trying to achieve health equity. And now with COVID-19, you really saw different ethnic groups had higher rates of infection, lower rates of vaccination. It really was front and center how important overcoming those health disparities, trying to achieve health equity. And so this, I think, is a reflection of that, how they've redesigned the 10 essential services. And I feel like a lot of the funding, now again, this is just my gut from years of experience. I think a lot of the funding now is really going to go back towards the health equity, overcoming the health disparities, having more social outreach, education. And so from that regard, you have a vulnerable population with your Veterans Affairs as well. It could make sense to have that underneath the umbrella of Carroll County Health Services. That could be, that
Could be part of it.
that is not a stretch. That could be a
Of
nice,
course, that we're under contract with new opportunities for general services, which naturally probably fits underneath there also.
Yep, and that's another one too, with the essential public health services is really to make sure, even if it's a service that we don't provide through the county, to be promoting it. If it's still a public health service, that's still the county's responsibility to make sure that we're promoting and getting people, if they need to go out to new opportunities, family planning or maternal child health, or, that we're all, collaborating and reaffirming. And sometimes we, you've been in the field for so long and just assume everybody knows, and they don't. So
Okay, any other questions? I would assume, I think probably best we have a motion to authorize them to go ahead.
So is the Board of Health gonna prepare the RFP and then let the Board of Supervisors see it? Or are you guys gonna prepare it and send it on its way?
We can do whatever the board wants. You know, I think the Board of Health will prepare it.
But I don't know if I have the right background to do that. I can take a stab, but if is.
Do you have any recommendations? Would Whitaker do anything like
I
that?
utilize Region 12 to help me with RFP. He helped me with the courthouse analysis RFP. Maybe something he'd be willing to do.
You know, let's do it this way. If we're gonna go ahead with this, let's not have a motion right now, but have them prepare an RFP and then bring it back to us and then we can approve it at that time, after RFP. And I would suggest that you go out and talk to Chris Whitaker.
I can do that too.
You two.
So is there a time frame when we want it to be completed by? I mean, is there urgency for the board to take action if there's gonna be changes made?
Well, she's kind of alluded to the fact that being for doing the spatial needs at the same time. If we get that all fit together. I mean, I see more urgencies on some things on our spatial needs than others. But
So like Courtney, when do the funds expire?
they don't.
No, okay.
That's a 2 and 2, isn't it? 2 years spend the first.
Well, on the AR.
I think it's
We got,
2026 is when I think.
but you're talking, you know, that other rule.
Well, we're talking recovery dollars or
Either one.
that's either one, yeah.
Either one would work.
So are there any contracts with any of these people getting ready to expire?
Well,
With IDPH.
with IDPH, no.
Well, we're talking one today. Substance abuse.
With Nuance.
I guess my question is, do we want to re-enter any of those contracts before we get the RFP back?
I think that may take a long time.
That's
So
fine.
I would say we re-enter them, and as they come up with new, then we do.
We do have a contract with St. Anthony's that is expiring July 1st. And
2 days from now?
2 days from now. So reviewing that, you know, no matter what happens, you know, that needs to be updated. Whether or not we can update it in 2 days, I don't think that's gonna happen. But
A year-long contract?
it's a year-long contract. And I don't think we would probably make it for a year. I think because, you know, I think we want to renew the contract. But I think we would renew it for a shorter period of time until we get the
Pending changes,
Yeah,
possible changes?
yeah, until we get the review back.
You know what, I don't see through this process, it's probably gonna take a year.
It'll probably take a year. We can always, you know, set it up for 6 months. We can always renew it at that time, so.
So is that agreeable, let me just go ahead and give them consensus to go ahead and prepare an RFP and then.
We're in by Region 12.
Yeah, with Region 12, and then we can approve it at that time after we look at the RFP. That makes sense to you, Becky?
Yep.
Because I think regardless of whatever happens, there's gonna be some changes, maybe no changes. You know,
It just needs to be looked at.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, you know, a lot of times people just assume when you ask something like this, it's because of something going on. That's not the case. You know, this is just, again, trying to be proactive and not reactive.
one thing I think to do is maybe find some efficiencies.
Yep.
That's always good.
Well, we got things going on. I mean, the COVID thing, you know, made us reflect on what the situation is. And then we got the spatial needs thing. If we do something, I mean, Becky had covered all that.
Yeah, it's just a time, it's a good time right now.
Yeah.
It really is.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay.
All right.
Get your direction.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have, is there anybody else coming from ISG that you know of?
That's too good.
Yeah. I don't have one.
I'll call you.
If one of you wants to
Becky, leave that door.
take it before you leave,
I
we
gave
can.
mine to the county nurses, so.
Yeah, we'll get some copies.
Is there anybody else coming you know of?
No, just us two from ISG. We have two representatives from cities.
Yeah, I knew they were. Okay, we're a little early, but, just go ahead and give us your presentation or what your.
He wants to come up anywhere different or back
That's
here.
fine.
Well, that will find you.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's pretty good job.
It will find you.
We're pretty used to these different streaming meetings. And
You have a little more thing you could, we're not on mask.
Yeah.
People back here, it has a little trouble
Does it?
finding
Does
it
it?
first, yes, gotcha. It has a little trouble.
Usually the bald heads pick it up. Get some light off of them.
I guess what Kelly's handing these out, I'll introduce myself. I'm Nick Frederickson, civil engineering leader at ISG. So manage our Des Moines office and civil engineering at ISG. So been working with Kelly for several months now on this project as he's working with the city of Waynesboro. And I'm here just to kind of go through a few things. So our plan was Kelly's going to kind of start on some of the issues that the city is having. And then we'll just kind of progress into what the project is and what we've seen to date right now. He is handing out just a quick schedule of some 3 different opportunities we'll touch base on. And then just a letter from the city stating essentially what we're going to talk about here. You guys have a summary of where we're at, where we've been, and where we want to get to. So that's where we're at. I don't know if I want us to stand or sit. That's kind of a small room, so I don't know, sometimes I'm a little easier standing to talk, but as long as it doesn't make anybody uncomfortable, I believe that. So otherwise, I'll turn it over to Kelly to give a quick introduction and to kind of run through how we got to where we are now.
So I'm Kelly Evans, I'm our senior water, wastewater engineer at ISG. I lead a lot of our water projects. We've been operating the city of Lanesboro's water system for probably the last 5 to 10 years, at least. It's been a long time. We're their affidavit operator, they have their day-to-day operator, but we have carried the license, we do all their operations. Their water system is a very complex system. It's a pretty simple treatment that they have there, being a small town, but their water source is pretty rough. It's got high iron, high arsenic, and high manganese. Now, if you guys have heard anything about arsenic, and especially arsenic will definitely kind of flash in your brain as kind of a health concern, but manganese is as well too. We were slowly getting our system kind of in order the last couple of years. We switched to a biological removal system. Everything was starting to really start operating well and meeting all the MCLs that we need to meet. At that point, we just got everything established. It was actually really starting to rock and roll, and their underdrains collapsed in their filters. And they weren't old filters, it wasn't lack of maintenance or anything else. It was just kind of an imminent threat deal that happened. So we lost all of our filtration, which then killed off all of our biology in that process as well too. We tried bypassing that filter, then the second one failed. At that point, the detention tank, which allows for oxidation of iron and manganese and arsenic, cracked down the side. So it's just kind of a windfall of about a month and a half that everything kind of went downhill very quickly. Essentially what that means is we were operating without any treatment at all, allowing the arsenic, iron, and manganese to pass through the system with chlorinated water. We reacted quickly and got a rental treatment system to try to remove all the arsenic and iron and manganese. But even with this temporary system, it's just not robust enough. We're still under a bottled water advisory for all infants due to the manganese levels that's passing through. And for reference, that level is 0.3. The manganese that's getting passed through right now is above 1. Arsenic levels also above the health advisory level. So kind of jumping off of her conversation, but the arsenic levels were also on the public health advisory list right now as well too. We're trying to get biology growing back into this new treatment system to try to help get it done, but it's only a temporary solution. So even if we get the biology up and going, which think about building a life, this is what we're building in biological cells to remove the iron, arsenic, and manganese. It takes time, and we can't run this for forever. So what we did is we went into a preliminary engineering report to look at different options. We looked at different funding sources, everything else too, but essentially what it came down to was it's cheaper for us, for the city, to build their own treatment system again. Their wells were failing, they have 2 wells, the treatment had already failed, and their tower was in poor condition. They were already saving up to replace the tower. So they had some funds in place. We looked at the cost to replace their entire system. Add a new well, rehab the 2 existing wells, replace treatment, and then also replace their tower. The price off the top of my head, I think was roughly around $3 million. We then looked at alternative options, and this is required of us for DNR, but essentially we looked at connection to a rural water system. We contacted Rural Water and Xenia, or West Central Rural Water and Xenia. Xenia were the only ones willing to extend their service, though it would have been at a substantial cost because their closest main was Jordan, and it was undersized to continue serving all the way out to Lanesboro. West Central was not able to do it because they would head across the river and it would expand their service area. They just weren't able to do that with their modeling software and showing that they would be able to serve it properly. So then we looked at Lake City connection. Lake City was very open to the idea. They have the capacity for it. It would be a good bill from them to help out Lanesboro, but they're also able to do it, so why not? So we're going down that path now, kind of looking into that. And I can kind of let Fred kind of take over from that, but I guess that's the health issues that we're facing right now. And we definitely have a timetable on that. You know, this rental system that we have for the current treatment is expensive. It's expensive monthly. It's not easy to operate. Their wells are losing capacity as we speak. So it's concerning for myself because it's my license that's actually on the line for their operation. It's concerning for me running the system already on public health advisories for the arsenic and the manganese, but let alone what if something else breaks in that time too. So we're kind of in a rush on that. But looking at the Lake City connection, Fred, if you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, so starting, I think it was in February, we reached out to, we kind of started this process with this engineering report, and the connection to Lake City was viable. So then it starts the process of a number of different dominoes rolling forward here on looking at that. So we reached out to, I think it was February-ish, to Zach and to Nick Booth up in Calhoun County to have some conversations on what they would need to see for us to move forward on getting a connection, because it is county property between Lake City and Lanesboro. So we looked at, you know, what their current policies are, what we would need for route, et cetera, on that. As we continue to develop the routes, we've engaged a land acquisition service as they look at the route to obtain all the easements for this private property. We know that the county's current policy is, we need to stay out of public right of way. That's the policy in place that you guys have followed for a number of years. It's the same policy, essentially the same policy as Calhoun County with that. As we continue to look deeper and deeper and go down this road here, looking at schedule and cost, I mean, there's an apparent difference if we actually look at installing this regional connection in the public secondary road right of way. So that's what we're here today for, is to, one, tell you a little bit about the story on Lanesboro, the situations that they are up against, and then just to have more of a discussion with the board and with Zach on, is there a possibility and what it would take if we can put this in public right of way. There's a big environmental review process that has to go in place as these get funded. That won't start until we secure where this water is going. As our state revolving fund has a really backlog with that, they will not do the work until we tell them this is where this is going. So that's a schedule issue right there. So I guess that's pretty much where we're at with it. We've had 3-4-ish calls with Zach and Nick, joint calls, because this is both counties are definitely invested in here moving forward. We did talk a lot at the end of last week, I believe, end of last week. Nick had indicated that Calhoun County is really going to follow the lead of Carroll County on this, because Lanesboro. So we're going to start here. We'll talk to Calhoun too, but just kind of how this works, knowing that they're going to follow your guys' lead. We want to be able to sit here, standing now, of course, but sit here and have a discussion with the board and with Zach on, we know the current policy. We know what Zach has requested on that, to start with. the land acquisition firm won't start communication with the landowners until all of these things are taking place. We've asked for the part of code that directs that. They haven't sent that to us, so that is a piece we're missing now. We're gonna be open and transparent through all of this. So that's why it seems like this is taking a long time, but there's all of these different things that had to be in place for us to move through with land acquisition.
Because this is state funding, like Fred said, there's just certain steps we have to go with private land ownership, making sure they understand their rights with the land acquisition. I mean, yes, we can go through eminent domain, we can go down that process, that's before through the state, and then give receipt flow, but let alone it's a longer process too. Either way, the numbers are the numbers, and we're talking a town of 120-ish people. Every dollar counts. We just missed a deadline for a Scpg grant. Well, it's due July 1st, but essentially with the land acquisition and the schedule it takes by following Iowa Administrative Code, we're gonna miss another grant opportunity for another 120,000. So that's a lot of money in and of itself, but this land acquisition cost, if we have to go to private ownership, is roughly around $400,000 to $500,000. For a town of 121 people, that's real money. So I guess what we're asking today is a better.
Say that again, $450,000.
$400,000 to $500,000 in land acquisition cost, because we're doing about a 50-foot wide in total, but some temporary.
So there'll be permanent temporary easements on private properties. There's approximately 23 to 25 acres of permanent easement here. And like I said, those numbers, that's what we're getting back from the land acquisition company, from what they've seen for costs of easements for this type of work. They also do the acquisition for rural water. That's one of the reasons we went with those guys, because this is a regional connection with that. Those costs seem high, but that's what we're getting told to expect in those negotiations, but they haven't started those negotiations yet.
But that's part include crop damage.
That's gonna,
Those kind of things.
correct. Yeah, typically you're gonna see like, that. So it's for the construction and maintenance thereof is the easement. Typically what we've seen in talking with them is as part of that cost for the easement, that's gonna include those like 3 years of crop damage that you would typically see and pay out on a corridor style project, but that's all upfront. And they also go and essentially it's good faith negotiations with the entire stretch of ground from Waynesboro all the way to the connection point, and everybody gets paid the same through projects like this. If one person demands this and that's what we can negotiate, that's what we get, that's what people get with it. So it's a little bit different process that they go through in our understanding of it. We are not land acquisition experts, so that's why we are not doing that in-house. I wouldn't expect our team to do that. That's why they are making the advisements to us on the best route moving forward for land acquisition. Really what it comes down to is additional costs to the city on there, from the initial capital costs and buying the land and getting all of that in place. And then of course, splitting that out 20 years on their loan versus installing it in the secondary road right of way, the public road right of way. So that's the cost difference there. The schedule difference is about a year. Do this in a year quicker for the city. So that's
the benefit that I want to stress more. It's not just the cost savings, which it is a large dollar sum that we're talking about, $400,000 to $500,000. It's more of a health and schedule implication that it is. Again, it makes me sick every day having to sign those MORs under my license with arsenic and manganese advisories out. I have a little one at home, so I wouldn't be happy about it if I was drinking that water. So by saving a year, we save them a year of being under that advisory, if not even better. Because we can move everything forward right away if it's in the right way.
I just think that the easement cost is sounds awful high to me.
Yeah, we've talked to Zach, Nick said the same thing.
By the time you hire a firm, they crop damage for 3 years, or percentage of the value.
Yep.
3 years, you have sales renewables, there's all kinds of sideline things that come there. And $7 corn is feeding into this thing also.
The other option is you can do boring though too.
Yeah.
Or
Yes, and you can bore a lot of it. But that again, I don't know what size, do you think?
6 inch.
6 inch, that's probably $16 a foot. Or, so.
It'll be more than that right now.
Everything's jumped.
Yeah, we're seeing, 6-inch pipe, we're seeing upwards of $40 to $50 a foot for water main. We got a spiking price right
It's been a
now.
while since I've been in that.
Yeah, it's, this past year, we're all.
It's pretty rough right now. Yeah, it is. I would take $16 every day of the week if I could find it for community.
And I thought that
Pipe
was,
is one up. Yeah, then the thing is that you can get it.
Yeah,
So,
that's the other thing, the
So,
residents not available for.
You're right, there's so much influx right now going on in the construction market. We're trying to get everything in place the best we can right now. Like I said, this seems like this has been going on for more months than it has, just because of these different timelines that we need and notices and acts and all of this stuff. So it seems like every time there's a setback, okay, let's reevaluate where we're at. So right now, that's why we're sitting here with it. Really to request and however we can work that out and work out engineering and everything else, with you guys.
so.
To see what the possibility of entertaining this in the public right away.
Let me tell me about your construction. Is it an open ditch cut that you're proposing?
We can,
In the bottom of the ditch, or are you?
So preliminary is, well, we haven't dug that deep. Typically what we see is it can be open cut or directional drill. I don't have a preference. I can see this being the length of it. It's directional drill is the way to go. For location would be at either the toe of the back slope, not even in the center bottom of the ditch. We're gonna keep it as far away from the roadway as we can, with that. So that's gonna be the construction area, so there may still need to be some temporary easement. If we do directional drill this, I think we can get away from a lot of that also, because 6-inch pipe with the new methods that they have in machines, you can pull pretty near a half a mile at a time.
Pull quite a bit.
Exactly, so if you could jump quarter to half a mile at a time, you can definitely limit the amount of, space that you need on the project. So, with fusible and restrained joint PVC and stuff like that, you could really extend that out. The new PVC that they had that you can actually fuse together, so there isn't any mechanical joinings, it's considered one piece of pipe. That doesn't have the big bells on it, so it pulls easier, so you can pull more, has a more pulling.
It's got a little rib where it will.
Just a little rib where it goes together, correct, yep. So different than HDPE, but it's still PVC.
Well, they're very familiar with natural gas.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So you're considering running the county road to the Lanesboro County Road entrance that goes into the community.
Yes.
So are you going to recommend it to Lake City Water that they open it up for the rural residents along the way to help
So-
deflect some of that cost?
It's in the agreement that hasn't been signed yet. But what the agreement states is they have the capacity. Now, Lake City is dealing with the same kind of water quality, but they have a more robust treatment system, but they do have the capacity, but they leave it to Lanesboro to be able to make that decision if they want to connect, since Lanesboro's paying for the water main and everything else. But then Lake City has to sign off on it too, that they have the capacity to do so.
To handle.
Yes, but that would be the goal, is that it kind of opens up. It's a minor benefit, but it could lead to something there, but they can open it up to sail anybody out
I
in
think
the.
there's a couple of confinements.
There is, we've looked along the way. There
Which
is one.
normally they don't care to do that because their water cost is very high, but sometimes they're forced.
If it's there, yeah, the goal wasn't to force anybody, but I know internally talking, the opportunity for rural connection to this is there, and the capacity is there for what types of connection those could be. At this time, we're not anticipating anybody outside of the city of Lanesboro hooking up to this region.
If you're boring that every half mile, I still can't see that cost being that high.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean,
But land acquisition, well, there won't be any land acquisition.
So you,
there's still, we still have to have easements on it.
Permanent easements, but it's not affecting the landowner. I mean, and that's where you go, if you give the opportunity for that landowner to connect to that water as well, that's a big plus for some of them. I'm not saying they all would,
Right.
but that number, whatever that number is, I would agree, I think it's less than that as well, but
Yeah,
I'm
like I
not
said,
specialist in that.
We're passing that one forward.
We got
I
a professional person on that.
I don't want to
But
wash
if
my
we-
hands with it.
If
but
you
that's-
allow that connection for that local entity, I think, that's crossing across that land, that would make a big difference, or could make a potential difference
Even
on that
Wait,
as
do
well.
do you know, Zach, what's rural water doing? They're not really paying for any easements, are they?
I don't know for sure. They may be
Just
paying for some, but I think it's
probably
pretty,
paying for property.
it's pretty minimal. I know they generally don't do it during crop season. They wait and they time it so they can do it the fall or the spring. And we have allowed them to swing out around acreage and whatnot, and I don't see any issues with that. It's the main line being in the ditch for that great length causes some heartburn. And we have 7 drainage district tile crossings in these 3 miles.
Next question is.
And we've talked to Brian about that on it, and we'll, like I said, when we get into where this goes and what would need to be done if this is an option, that's another discussion with that.
Well, I mean, have you thought about the fact that if you put it in the right of way and we also go out there and grade it, you know who's gonna replace that pipe?
Yep.
And that's gonna be expensive. And I think you don't want that expense then either.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not gonna pay for it.
you have to understand that. It would be the normal utility agreement and
And
Yeah,
that's-
most of this
That's
road
something I
is-
think that needs to be strongly considered.
Yes.
If it's in private, then it is on us. If we would want to buy it and acquire that, then it's on the county.
And we've done the benefit cost analysis on that. We have to do it through USDA, who's likely to be the funding source on that. And we look at the possibility of repairs, costs, everything like that. And the cost savings we're gonna have with going in right away versus private easement access, as well as the benefit of health, which is also a factor for USDA, far outweighs that possibility that there is on it. So,
We're talking 3 miles.
yep. It's 8.5 miles total, so I feel like I'm talking to 2 counties here, because I know that one's gonna follow your lead.
Well,
But
yeah,
yeah, you guys
well,
have
for
3
you,
miles,
it's 8 miles.
Yeah,
For
for you,
Carroll, for
it's-
this group right here, it's 3.
Correct, yep.
And so, how many landowners?
I can't, there's 27.
No, I'm talking Carroll County.
I can't answer that right now.
I don't know that there's any more than 5.
I just can't think of it from Lanesboro.
Yeah, there's, do you guys know? Do you guys know how many landowners there would be involved?
Yeah, I can't answer that one for you.
Well, I don't think there would be that many. And, you know, we've got a project south of Manning where we're going 3 miles and we have to buy easement. How much is it costing us, Zach?
I'm guessing, I think the appraisals came in, I'm guessing now, I'm trying to go from what Dave had done. I think they were 8,000 to 10,000 an acre, but I could be wrong on that. But that's for physically buying the right of way that they will never get used again, and the fence will move back and taken out of production.
It's not gonna be anywhere close to $500,000. It isn't. And so, I don't know, I think your number's real high there. As far as the land acquisition
We'll go
is
back and
concerned.
push on them as far as what we need to truly estimate on that change.
And Zach and I drove it, and, you know, I think the way we came, we just have a precedent that we're sticking
We should
to,
understand,
and we
yeah.
don't want to change it. Because if you do it for those guys, why aren't you doing it for us? And I think that's always been a supervisor
Oh, I agree with that too.
obstacle that we face here all the time, as far as setting a precedent, you know, and treating everybody alike.
Yeah, being city engineers for a number of municipality communities, we understand
Yeah.
setting precedents there. With this being, you know, turning into an emergency situation, you know, we're hopeful that other considerations can be made with that.
The construction.
You're not even close to even to that, so you got a lot of time before construction to get that done.
Well, and so that's what we're on that timeline, so that's what pushes. For us to
And I
start,
think there's not that many property owners that,
Yeah.
I think about having a discussion with them.
yeah, well, that is the plan, but that's not part of our, you know, they're following the code there, so I
Well,
can't do
you know,
that.
the thing about it is, when Zach and I drove it, you know, I don't think this board wants to be hard asses about this.
No, I
You know,
don't.
But I think we look at it that, you know, if you're on the private property, it's actually, I mean, I think rural water would rather be on private property because the construction's easier and
Right.
faster.
What I've been
Yeah,
told
it
is rural
is.
water chooses to go on private property because they see lower construction costs, and it's an easier process for them to not have to deal with until they're already in the ditch and everything else, driveways, culvert pipes, everything that's there. I mean, they just, That's what I've heard, and maybe there's other ones that feel differently, but that's what I heard.
And I go back to this, if we just decide to do something, then the city landlord's gonna get stuck for replacing that pipe. And I don't know that they're ever gonna want that, them to come up and fund the funding for that.
Yeah, I think luckily, I think this whole, all the 2 miles is in gravel, if I remember correctly, back through the whole stretch.
But that doesn't mean we won't be doing something.
Yeah, yep, I understand.
I mean,
But it's
I can't answer for
It's
you.
not,
Yes,
it's not, for,
For you guys, you guys are taking consideration of 3 months, correct?
yes.
I mean, we can't answer for future boards, neither what they're gonna do.
Yep, correct. So, okay, well, you know, working with Langford, we have to take this, we have to have this conversation. We should definitely.
Any comment?
You're just trying to save the town as much money as we can.
Yeah,
You know,
And you wanna get it going, and we
Yeah.
get that,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know.
the operator, and the system they have in there is giving us headaches, like. you
Yeah.
believe.
I mean, I don't wanna see you guys get
There's a
called
lot
a
of,
big bill later on.
there's a lot of older citizens in Lanesboro, and
So do you think, do you think, you guys live up there, you guys know the landowners that we're talking about.
yeah,
Do you think it's gonna be an issue with those landowners to go through private property?
I don't know about 3 miles in Carroll County, but there's 5 miles in Calhoun County that we have.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like,
3 miles in Carroll is gonna be half or less than what's gonna be in Calhoun.
but it sounds like at one time, you know, I mean, they said they're gonna follow our lead, but at the beginning of this, they were gonna go in the right of way, the way I understood it. They were okay with going in the right of way. Is that correct?
I can't speak for them on
Okay.
that.
Well, I mean,
Like
that's
said,
what-
we
That's
haven't-
what I had, when I talked to one of the supervisors,
First
that
map
was,
I saw was
yeah. And so I mean, they're probably a little bit more flexible than we are. So I mean, if they wanna go in the right of way in Calhoun County,
Yep, that is a county, these.
yeah, it's a county-based decision for
Can you
them as well.
switch? I like that, like what you're,
Oh, yeah.
that what he's doing, Carroll County does it our way and they can connect, but
Well, they do that all the time, and go across roads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did make a motion to use private easements. And then also on top of that, then said, we would like to follow Carroll County's lead. So they must have reconsidered their initial position. I'm not saying wouldn't be more flexible, but they did all unanimously make that motion. I know Nick told me that.
I have no problem with if we have to work around something short distance,
Yep.
get in the right of way, I'm not.
I think that's what we determined too, that if you absolutely can't be in private
Yeah,
property.
there's gonna be a few spots. in
Yes,
that.
there are.
I'll
I
tell
mean,
you
there's
that.
some trees, there's acreages and stuff like that.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I don't even know how you're gonna get through, you almost have to go across the road.
Yeah, there's a
You
couple
know,
bad
to get
spots.
to bypass tree
Of course,
tree
today
roots
with
and,
boring, they can about to do anything.
yeah, but there's a lot of tree roots in those.
There's a
Right
couple
away.
locations where the alignment is now, not that it can't change, but where they're going by an acreage that there's trees in the right of way and there's trees in the yard. There's really no way, you'd have to go back around that property, I think.
I've gone underneath some pretty big trees before without any issues.
Well,
So.
And I guess to kind of think it out.
How flexible, we had this conversation too, is how flexible is that 6-inch? I mean, what kind of a, very flexible? I mean, can you go like this
You'd
and,
be surprised.
Yeah,
You
there's
can go
some,
underneath river basins pretty easily.
Yeah.
Go under culverts and,
yeah,
okay, well then it makes it a whole hell of a lot easier then.
Well, I mean, you can't turn it in the length of this building, but you get the length of.
remember, yeah,
And the
we
parking
can-
lot.
we can start
do
going
lots of
down
different
and then
things there.
coming back up.
I mean, that's 6-inch, that's
Yeah.
pretty big.
Ah, it's pretty big deal.
I think, I just want to be clear, and I'm coming from this from an operator's perspective and a public health advisory, but this isn't about the cost savings. I know we're focusing on that about it being high, and I understand that, but this is about public health. And if my son was drinking manganese levels above 1, that would scare me. And so by being able to expedite this a whole year is a huge deal. And I would agree with that.
Yeah, so so going through this on what Kelly's talking about there, we didn't dig into that real deep here. This is a combination of there's Scpg, so block grant funding, there's state revolving funds, so SRF funding, and rural development funding. So it's 3 different packages together. There's over $2 million in grants being allocated to the city to get this done. on it. So we have to follow the most stringent reviews of all of this, and one of those is the environmental, where we have to have state revolving fund to do the environmental because SRF, the rural development will allow that to happen, so that's the more stringent. They will not even look at environmental review until you finalize alignment with it. So we can't say, these are the roads we're going, we're either gonna be in the right of way or private property. It's no, you tell us where it is going, and then we will start to review because they are that backed up. So that's one of those timeline things that is tripping us up.
And best case scenario, that's a year savings.
It's a year savings.
Worst case scenario, it's
18 months is what we're looking at, so.
About that detailed review though, the 2 miles of gravel in Carroll County are on the same side as the power poles. If you're gonna put that in the toe of the back slope, you're probably within 4 to 5 feet of the power poles.
Yep.
So I guess if it's
We
that
would
deep.
flip, we would flip sides and stuff like
I
that.
understand that, but if it was that detailed, why hasn't that been looked at already? If it's that short a time frame and that much of a health risk, and I agree that it is, and I wouldn't want my child drinking that water either. But it's like, it's an emergency for certain these items, but we started this conversation in February and they knew this was coming before that. It seemed like it's taken a long time to get here and not having any conversations with the landowner whatsoever.
That's out of our hands though.
I understand that, but you still contracted with them to do that work.
Yeah.
So that part bothers me, that hasn't conversation, and I'm not trying to do their job, I don't wanna do their job. But that's a long time.
Yeah.
For this is an emergency and really needs to get moving.
And we've been on their case on that too, and trying to explain to them the health implications of all this as well too. But at the same time, we're running 5 different scenarios on a project of millions of dollars for 120 people. So there's a lot of moving parts. And Zach, you remember I don't know if you ever did USDA funding, but you know how fun that can be, or you probably like started it.
Yep.
That's been a large factor too, but it's just trying to stress to all of them. Luckily, DNR, USDA, SRF is all on the same side about the public health contingency.
You know what, in my opinion, the last damn resort of funding I get.
If they're gonna give us $1 million, we have to button up.
We have
can't find that
projects out there, Maplewood, Mount Carmel, they cost us tons of money, but Jack messing around for 10 years.
So, we've been there, those are challenges I'd say we're embracing because, you know, there's a $1 million SRF available loan that's part of this. It's about $1 million from rural development.
And then $120,000.
And then $120,000 from CDBG. So, you know, without those 3 funding partners working together, their water system doesn't become a reality. There's no way to do it. So, you know, putting all of those apples and getting that moving together, it's pretty large. So, with that, I mean, is there any other questions from the board? The direction there, it's exactly what we talked about with Zach. You know, there's no change there. We want to be open and transparent on what we're looking to do with this, and we're just.
Is there further questions or answers that we can get to possibly help change this decision?
We're still going down we're not holding on private land. So we're moving down that path. Public hearings are being scheduled. They're going to start negotiations. We are moving down that path. So we are not this conversation is not.
But again, that path is a
delaying a
long
project, but that project is a year longer now after working through this to this date. So from February to now, we're really March, end of March till now. That's how far this has gone. So.
Well, you know, that 9-month lapse in here, I mean, that's not our responsibility. And that was never our responsibility from the beginning. That was your responsibility. Well, that was someone else's. It wasn't ours. So that, you know, based on, we're making our decisions based on what we've been doing for years.
Yep.
So everybody should know that. And
we
as far
know
as
that.
Lanesboro is concerned, we want to continue to be good partners with you. I mean, I think we had, when I was up there last week or the week before, we were doing some tile work for you guys. And, you know, I mean, we just want to continue to be good partners and work with you. We want to do what we can. But I don't know if we can.
Yep.
My position, I will support
I
that.
think you guys are pretty unanimous with Zach on that. So but we still have to be here. You know, we have to have this conversation. And
What's that total project cost?
about 3.4 to 3.8 million total.
Okay.
So, and it can ask us in 3 weeks and we see new PVC costs and it might change quite a bit. It's crazy right now.
Well, this is a bad time to bid anything.
Well, yeah, in the best case scenario for this whole process is, bidding this winter, the best case, possible. So, as far as true design, once we get direction on putting this in and where it needs to go, we can get that documentation out and submitted in 6 weeks, But we're not gonna do 6 weeks of work and then throw it away to do another 6 weeks of work, through that time. So some of Zach's questions on looking at that detailedness on some of that stuff, that's why all of that hasn't been looked at, because we're not certain where this is going yet, because we don't have advice from an acquisition and all of these things, so. But that's just, like I said, we wanted to be here, wanted to let you guys know firsthand on where we're at with everything here, and we appreciate the time, in your guys' meeting here, and Lanesboro appreciates the time to listen to this also. So moving forward, we're going to continue down the private. You'll probably see, what do you guys call it here, Zach? If we have to jump out in the right of way, is there just a utility permit? Just a utility permit. Yep. So, anyways, we'll do that. Part of me wishes we were on a state highway here, because it's seriously a permit you file and it goes in the right of way. With it, but counties are different.
Well, then, I don't know that state allows that too easy to meet it, do they?
It's a permit is been brought through it.
Well, I mean, I just seen down there at Bagley, they were putting in water in from Lake Zena.
Yep.
And they were going on private property until they got the last quarter mile.
And then
And they ran into an issue and then they went into the state.
Yep. We've done several miles in state highway over the past few years on it, so it's different. It's a different entity.
It's easier to protect the utility when it's in private right of way than when it's on public right of way. It's just easier because you have power, telephone, you have
Oh, yeah.
there's all kinds of things going on in that public domain. Where private, once you get out there, pretty much everybody stays away from you. And that's why they like to be out there. So, and it's not just our 3 mile. And I'm as pro utilities that I worked 30-some years working for them, so I understand, I get it all. But my problem is there isn't a community, there's only 2 communities that I know of that may, in the future, that won't be faced with water issues.
Oh, yeah.
They're all coming. The parameters are changing. Water is going to be a bigger deal. It's just, that's my 2 cents worth. I just see
We work
that's
with
the path.
utilities, and they're also, sometimes they're our worst nemesis, and sometimes they're our best partner. So we see both sides of that on an almost daily basis. So we definitely understand that. So with that, I would just thank you for your time on it. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for the information.
And if you guys have any questions, reach out through Zach. You're welcome to come direct to us, myself. You can go through Zach. Most of these conversations we're running through Zach. He is your engineer, and he's responsible for your guys' roadway system. So that's where we're starting, and we're not trying to circumvent that or anything else like that. We want Zach here. We want his voice is important to that, and we've known Zach a long time. So
Appreciate you guys being here.
all right. Thank you all. We'll let you get on to something more fun.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know, there's any fun nowadays.
Yeah. Attending numerous board meetings and council meetings, I understand that kind of things. That's much. So,
Hey, Zach.
thank you all. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
You too. Okay, Zach.
All right.
Do you think it's important for us to make any motion to follow what Ken and Tom on this?
I don't think so at this point.
I don't
think you need to at this point.
We're just supposed to make a note in the minutes that the general consensus of the board is to
With the
maintain
information
a
that we have.
present policy of having utility placed in private property.
With the current information. If things change.
As much
I
as
think-
possible.
I think that's what we need to have in there.
I would agree with that. That's very fair.
I feel their plight, but I can tell you, I think there'd be other communities that are not gonna be too far behind us. They're all have older water systems and they're all going to be faced in the next few years.
I think this thing should have been brought up a lot longer.
Well, you don't want to push
You
that.
don't.
If they want to cross underneath the road, we'll let Absolutely, it. absolutely. Going around acreages, I mean,
Yeah,
that's part of it.
As much as possible. Stay in the private as much as
Yeah,
possible.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, get utility permits.
2 utility permits today. First one is for Raccoon Valley Electric. This is Newton Township, Section 9. This is on 295th Street, service to a hog site. Is what it is. So it's just a bore across the road. Nothing extravagant. I don't see any concerns with that one whatsoever.
Hey, is there a motion to, you want to do them together or something?
We can do them together if you'd like, it don't matter. They're both relatively simple. The second one is for Windstream Communications. This is in Union Township, Section 2536. It'd be along 330th Street, just east of Zephyr. This would be east of Coon Rapids. Basically what they're doing is replacing about 1,200 feet of fiber and serving a location. They are staying in the ditch on this one since it's only 1,200 feet instead of going back out to the road and back again. There are some existing utilities up in the shoulder, so they're staying close to the back slope on this one. So I don't see any issues with that. That'd be the only outside the norm for us. We would normally try to keep them on the right of the shoulder, but in this case, for the distance they're going and what they're trying to serve, I think it makes sense.
Okay, you've heard the utility permits. Is there a motion, or is there any further questions? If not, is there a motion to approve them?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second?
Then moved and second to approve the 2 utility permits. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is a drain in June. How about that? We had someone call in, Will Reaver call in about multiple sinkholes in the stretch of a waterway. This is in section 14 of Richland Township. South of Ralston, this would be like near the Richland pit. But it's out in a waterway, so it's accessible right now. But we need to do some more investigation to see if this is just a repair. From what I understand, there was some tile replaced in this area. So this could be an old line that's taking water. So we need to double check and make sure it's not the old line that just needs to be crushed, if it didn't get crushed all the way, or if this is something on a existing line that's working. So we need to do some more investigation in that, but I wanted to let you know. Hopefully that's relatively simple fix, but that's what we're at.
Can you run a wire down there, or?
We'll run our tracer down and try to find out how much water's running in it and what the situation is. So.
This was my favorite drain. This is Neil's. I use a rubbery about that all the time.
So
you think you're gonna see running water? You're gonna pile right now?
well, there's a little bit. I don't know if there's a lot. There's a little bit. We saw a little bit up in Lanesboro, not a lot, but a little bit. So
Is there a motion then to approve the drain repair?
Approve the drain repair or investigation? Yeah.
and that's where I struggle with when to bring these to you guys because I want to make you aware of them, but we really don't know a whole lot of details on this one yet. So
While you're there, why not fix it?
Yeah, but aren't they
Well,
gonna
yeah.
fix it if they find it when they're there?
Yeah. So I'd say let's
Yeah,
do.
you know, but if it comes back and it's gonna cost
Well, then we got to rely on him to come back.
if it's something substantial, I'll
Yeah,
definitely
you
be
can
back.
come back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So let's do the motion to repair that.
I'll make a motion to repair.
I'll second. Then moved in second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion.
Not called.
Well, I mean, it all makes sense, now you're literally gonna fix it.
Yeah, you're gonna fix it.
Right. Just one other item of note, the N33 asphalt resurfacing project, we believe is gonna be starting at the end of next week sometime. They'll be starting with milling and proceed from there. So
And 33, that's the other one.
that's the Denimore Road.
Next week.
So they're gonna start milling on which road?
4th of July.
The N33, the Dedham Willie
Right,
Road.
okay, so
I'm not sure which end.
So they're gonna start the milling, and so when are they gonna actually do the paving?
So my guess is it's gonna take them roughly a week to mill. This is just a rough idea. And then they'll be working on the base widening. So they'll be milling out the 4 foot of gravel, dirt, rock, shoulder, and putting the base in there first. That process, I don't know if that'd take
Asphalt base?
asphalt base, 5 inches of base. That might be another week and a half to 2 weeks to do that. And then after that, they'd come back and start laying mix across the whole surface of the road, the base that we put in, as well as the existing road. So it'll be 2 to 3 weeks before they start actually putting asphalt down on that, but they will be putting asphalt in on that base, so.
So are they gonna close the road?
Nope, it'll be open to traffic. This is, there'll be a flagger set up, pilot cars, and then there will be
But I mean,
delays.
it's gonna be under repair for 3 weeks
Well, and that's just to get to that
to
point.
4 weeks.
The total project, my guess is 5 to 6 weeks to get everything done. But it will be under pilot car flagger situation for 5 to 6 weeks.
Cause we were on a road this weekend in Crawford and part of Ida County. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep,
That a month ago, they had the road closed and they were milling it and it was still closed, yesterday. And they weren't close to.
We can start by.
I mean, I guess that's why I asked how long.
I don't know which way they'll
it's
start.
gonna take. You're gonna close it.
There instead of using flag.
Yeah, they closed it. They were, somebody thought there was a bridge out there.
So in the paper, I put the road will remain open during.
road will remain open to traffic. I mean, there will be delays. I mean, you're not gonna be just like driving down the road. There's gonna be delays.
delays.
And I would rather have that than to have the road closed.
It is. And just for access.
I mean, me personally, I'm not gonna take that road, I'm just gonna take gravel now.
My understanding there's a business in Willie that's closed for a month.
I've heard that too.
Yes.
How did they need a vacation?
I think you're right.
I don't think they need to close it for this.
Well,
Especially the
they're-
car.
Right.
Okay. Well, I wanted that clarification because.
That'll be after the 4th of July. is when-
It'd be after the 4th of July. They're looking at the 7th or 8th is what they're assuming. They haven't given us a hard date, but
Were you the one to tell me that you did some work up in Lake Road, some drains too, and you figured out what some of the problems was?
yeah, we
We
did.
were up there. I was up there. We didn't look at it that day, but.
There were some sewer services that were put in to houses that instead of avoiding our tile line, they cut out a section of our district tile line and put in their sewer service and just left it. And it's been that way for 50 years, 60 years.
Where was the sewer going?
The sewer's going to the sewer, and that was fine, but our drain it had to filter around through the dirt.
Is that where the piece kind of goes at an angle through people's property?
This one's down, this is in the street right away. It's
okay.
going, it's a sub-district or sub-main going to the west. It'd be going west of the post office, going out towards the edge of town. So you always find something,
Oh, yeah.
so.
But could be worse, could have been natural gas line got stuck, and then you try to route it.
But we fixed 2 of them. We still have a little bit further to go. There could be a third one yet, but they're gonna be working on that here this week, so.
Let's not refigure the favor. Let's do it right. So
We're sure trying to make it fit.
Zach, didn't City of Lansboro put in new water? Didn't they redo their
They,
cold water?
all of their water system, the pipes throughout town, I believe were done in, I don't know if it was 2013, 2012, 2014, somewhere in that 8-9 years ago, maybe somewhere in there. They're all redone. Good mains. They did have a water main break here this past winter that they had to fix. But other than that, their water mains are in good shape. It's not very good as a drawing showing where they're at and what the information is on, but it is that part of the system is new. So that's the one good thing they have going for them, I guess, is whether they did their own water treatment in wells or whether they get the water from another community. Their system,
Once they get it to Lanesboro, it's good.
They got that part
Yeah.
right, which that's a problem of a lot of other small communities that they don't have. They haven't had that fixed, and they have a lot of old water mains.
Okay.
That other thing we talked about, Norris probably has no interest in this.
I don't think so. I don't think with the amount, the timeline that they have, it'd be tough.
Be close to the tail end.
It would. I mean, there's possibilities with multiple contractors, but it's figuring out what we want to do and how fast we can get it done. And the biggest thing is that I think there need to be some patching first.
Yeah.
So we have to get that figured out.
I asked you to look at that, and I don't know what the right procedure is, if you just go over it or you need to fix it.
Right. That's how bad it is.
Let's see. There also, I talked to Bill, there's a pallet load of brick. There could be some block. So visit with him, see what's
Okay.
left over, see what they're done with it.
Okay.
If you want to have time to come up, snag it,
We can
take
do
it
that.
out and reuse the brick leaf, but the block you could probably use on some project somewhere.
Yep.
If we paid for it, there's no sense of getting it back, so.
Yep. Oh, sounds good.
All right, any other questions for Zach? Okay, thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Okay, next is the set public hearing for GSC Agribusiness Construction. This is a permit for an existing building, am I right on this, Courtney?
Yeah, so it's to convert an existing swine sow facility to a swine finisher facility with no new construction. So there will be there's no need for a master matrix. You guys won't have to go out and do the tour like you have in the past when there's a master matrix, but we still need to go through the process of having a public hearing. And then we'll send a letter from the board to the DNR after we have the hearing.
I think that's probably wise to do that public hearing because the location of it, proximity to the city limits.
Yeah, and I was told in order for the county to keep submitting their approvals on master matrices and facilities in general, you have to do it on all of them. You can't just pick and choose, I think, which ones you want to do. So while this one may not be a big change and there's no new construction, we still have to follow procedures. I'm proposing for July 12th at 10 a.m.
July 12th at 10 a.m. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yep.
Is there a motion to set that public hearing? So been moved and seconded?
They're gonna increase the population of the unit from 1640 to 4100.
Yeah, they're going from a sow unit to finishes. So that, yeah, that's gonna be the biggest issue, the thing is probably the number of animals. Okay, next is set a public hearing. Oh, that's right, we got to go over that. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Okay, next is set a public hearing for a community development block grant application. And
Just so everybody's aware, this is to get involved with another program.
it's the housing program that we. So,
I'm proposing July 12th again, this one at 9:30.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve, set the public hearing for community development block grant for July 12th at 9:30. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Okay, next we have is approval of plat. I think we just got one here today. And that is for, from what I looked it up, it appears that this is an acreage. And they're making this partial out of that acreage is where a hog unit is at. So that's why they're getting by with that 0.64.
Yeah, that was.
0.64, that was a question that I had.
The size.
Ag.
Yeah.
They just took, they pulled just the
Yeah.
acreage at the south line of this plot. is
Yeah.
The south end of the acreage and it all extends to the north and just pulled this part out of the. So,
I'll make a motion to approve the plat.
is there a second? I'll second it. Any further discussion? It's been moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Okay, next we have is tax abatement resolution.
So there are two, we'll do them separately. First one is for 2 mobile homes. Those mobile homes were destroyed and they are no longer proper, or previous procedures as we abate those taxes because the mobile homes have been destroyed. So the one is $180, the other one is $222.
Well, what you got here, is this that, where you got 3 years on our special assessment, 18 and 19?
No, this is the,
Oh, okay,
First one has it.
and that's a home destroyed?
2 mobile homes. Or 1 mobile home, sorry. But 2 different,
2 different lots.
well, no, it's same tax year. Yeah, it must be 2 mobile homes.
Then it is.
So,
I'll make a motion to approve that tax abatement.
And those were here, Carroll then?
Yes. Unfortunately, I'll second that. But it is what it is.
All right, there's been a motion, is there a second?
Second.
I got a motion.
You
and a
seconded already.
Oh,
Who did? Oh,
I made the motion and
I
he said,
support.
Sorry.
Second.
Third,
Sorry.
that's okay. I just need a roll call vote.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say, wait, this is a resolution. Roll call, yes.
Ruggles,
Yes.
Osborne,
yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shetler.
yes.
Okay, motion carries. I'll pass this around for
It's Monday
signatures.
morning.
I know,
They
I know.
handle these down here the way this thing's going.
Uh-oh, I think she might be listening to the meeting. Okay, so the next one is another resolution. This is kind of a unique situation where the city of Manning took over ownership of these properties. And I had a code section here that the treasurer gave me. So her note here is that this parcel was acquired by the city of Manning and district court. The parcel of land is to be transferred to the city of Manning and municipal corporation, free and clear of all and any claims, liens, or encumbrances. So we are required to abate these for the city of Manning.
Why doesn't the treasurer come down here for those?
She said she would,
If
but
she needed
normally,
to.
normally the treasurer doesn't come down for these. Usually I'm, but she offered to, and I said normally.
I didn't know what the protocol was.
Obviously, if you have questions, she would be happy to answer them, I'm sure, but.
That should be the last one. Issues down there too. I believe it all.
That I can't answer.
They're all on,
Where were they at?
South, north of Smith. On that.
That's all cleaned up.
East side of the road. I assume this is probably the
Tail end.
tail end of that.
And this property, this we're talking about, is property, and that they city took over. So we need a motion for this. For the man. And I'll also move.
I'll second.
Then moved and second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Myers,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Westman,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Shepherd.
Yes.
Motion carries. So now,
Okay. Now, next we have is review and approval of a hazard mitigation plan with Region 12. This is basically their contract to do the hazard mitigation plan. Updated.
yeah, so, it's a $25,000 project. They'll bill it in 5 installments. One for 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. I don't believe we budgeted the 5,000 for 22, so we would have to take care of that in the budget amendment, which it really isn't that big of a dollar amount to amend the budget for, so I don't think, I didn't see an issue with it, but obviously it's your decision, so.
I think it's a good program, and the reason I like it is it spreads that over 5 years, makes it easy to budget for. Also gives them a 5-year contract that gives them an opportunity to hire people. They don't hire people for several 5-year projects and then those disappear and then they have to let them go. And you try to fight that battle system. It's an ongoing thing that they can control their employment process with. So I think it's a good fit for everybody.
So our plan is not up due until 25 then?
26.
Well, they say completed by 26, but
What happens, I also asked about that, if we would have any FEMA or governmental interaction, the piece that we did this year would be up to date, so that would get filed with them. So we wouldn't be more than maybe 1 year behind on any particular piece. So there again, it kind of just fits, so we would be almost current all the time, almost.
so this basically spreads out their workload instead of doing every so many years, do the
Right.
whole thing real quick.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing. That way it is more up to date all the time.
Especially if you have a FEMA issue. Now, let's hope we don't, but.
Any questions on this? Any other comments? If there is none, we're in order to move to adopt it or to turn it down.
I'll make a motion that we approve the hazardous communication plan for Region 12.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second to approve the hazard mitigation plan of Region 12. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried.
Jeannie, you just sign this.
Next we have is approval of substance abuse service agreement with New Opportunities. This is money that we get from the state that we subcontract with New Opportunities for our substance abuse treatment.
So it's 100% pass through?
But yeah, basically you're right, it's a pass-through grant. It's 300 or 3,000, whatever, 3,000 some dollars a year.
Yeah, so we get $3,589 from the Iowa Department of Public Health. It's a 3-to-1 county match for a total budget of $14,356. So the county does match some of those funds for that, it looks like, so.
Okay, is there a motion to approve that agreement?
Budget, Courtney. We
Yeah,
know that amount.
Yeah,
every
so
year.
when Chad meets with us, he'll give us dollar amounts for this, and you can see on page 2 where it talks about what they get from the Department of Public Health and then what the county match. So he let us know that they needed $10,767.
I'll make that motion.
It's been moved, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Contrary? I'll abstain.
I need you to sign it.
But I can sign it, but I can't, I don't want to vote on it.
Okay.
I mean, they're authorized to do
Got
so. The only reason I'm just,
Sure.
because I'm also the president of the board up there.
Just going back to that hazard mitigation plan, several years ago, I mean, were we paying like something like $30,000 a year? And then didn't they consolidate that with other counties where we did not have to pay as much because they were consolidating that?
Not that I remember.
I remember a
I think-
conversation about that, but
What they did is, we used to do our own plan, and then
Right.
each city did their own plan. They consolidated together. And I think that thing, everybody paid a portion of that. But we did that at
Is-
1 year time, and they did it in a year's time. Whereas now, they're gonna try to spread that workload over 5 years.
Okay, so we're talking about the same
It's
thing.
basically the same thing, except we're spreading the workload all over 5 years.
We're at, instead of just having renewed every year, we basically approved it for 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
just a little piece.
That answer your question? Yep. Okay.
I just wondered if it was the same thing. Yeah, yeah.
It's- Okay, and I see where it's benefit them because they spread out the workload.
Right.
Okay, next we have manure management annual updates. We have one with AV Port, section 32 Maple River Township. They changed crop rotation for optimum yields. That's the only one we have. And then next we have is committee reports.
I'll go first. I fairly light week. Last week I had a Zoom meeting for WIWD at Western Iowa Workforce Development. That was to prove that board. They approved a memorandum of understanding between the local workforce and the development board. It's a thing that the state required. And I just set in on these meetings just to make sure that they're following procedures as close as they can, because a lot of these people are from businesses that have not dealt with governmental. And there's about 4 of us that watch this constantly. Then next Tuesday, I will be joining that same board again. And that is where they're sending out an RFPs for one-stop operators, and that will be approved at that point. And I think they've had a lot of interest in it, so that's a good thing. That they've got a lot of competition in that part of it, and that will be approved at that meeting. But that's that board. I just sit and watch and listen on that. That's it. That's all I have.
I'm gonna. Last week, I went to Webster City on Friday for the second judicial, approved the budget on that. It was nice to meet in person. No surprises or anything. Then last week, Stephanie and I met with Wendy at the ambulance, and we're having a board meeting tomorrow night at 5:30 to discuss the future. And that's all I have.
I can go next. I only had one scheduled meeting last week. Throughout the week, there was discussion on Board of Health issues, and talked to Zach a few times on the Greensboro thing. My only meeting that I had was with was a North Raccoon River Watershed Management Coalition meeting, Zoom meeting. We were able to get a quorum. They contacted all those that have not been participating, and were able to get a quorum. They were able to pull a quorum through. The meeting, one of the big things was the election of officers. And that was probably the biggest thing. And I think they're going to be able to complete the work in Buena Vista County that started, as I've told you in the past, there was more dollars available, but Pocahontas refused to use those dollars because they could not come to a compromise on how they were going to actually, the work that was going to be done. So they let those dollars go and they went to Dubuque. So the only work that was completed would be in Buena Vista County. I think that we're going to be able to take a tour of those at our next meeting in October. They had the election of officers, and Kerry Neveratel, who is the chairman through this whole thing in the last 5 years, did not want to be the chair of the, she wanted to step down. And Jonathan Gano from Polk County is the Des Moines Public Works Director, put his name in for nomination. And there was no other nominations. So he became the chairman, and the vice chair was Fred Long, who had been on. He said he would run again, and as vice chair, he's a Soil and Water District Commissioner from Greene County, and the secretary was Katie Rock, and she was with the Soil and Water District in Polk County, and she said she would stay on. So then it came down to the treasurer, and Paul Merton was the treasurer, and he decided not to run again. And so I didn't like this situation the way it was shaping up with Polk County having the chairmanship of this board, and if it wasn't, it was okay with the other two. But the only other position that was going to be available would have been the treasurer. And so a Soil and Water District individual from BV County said that he would be that individual. I thought, well, at least it's not Polk County. And so I was okay with that, but then we're in a Zoom meeting. Well, then Mark Hansen from Dallas County thought that a supervisor should be in that position. And so he said, I nominate Dean Shetler for that position. And because I'm involved in other watershed managements, and I thought, this is one that I will take, simply because that way there's some oversight on the executive committee. So
all the information,
Yes.
not the funnel information.
Yeah, I mean, when they have a meeting, there'll be somebody there that's going to represent the whole. So I called Mark afterwards, and I thanked him for nominating me. I didn't think it was my position to go ahead and nominate myself, as Jonathan Gano did, but I thought it was important that, and as far as the treasurer is concerned, the balance is zero. There's no money coming in. There's $16,000 that needs to go out, because we got $16,000 in bills yet. But we don't have any money, so I guess we're going to have to figure out how we're going to do that. There was a little bit of discussion about that as far as having the counties and entities come up with those dollars. But we'll have to see where that's going. I'm not in favor of that. So that's how that deal turned out. I thought I wasn't paying a whole heck of a lot of attention sometimes at those meetings when they're on Zoom. But my attention span perked up a little bit when.
They called your name?
Well, when they called my name and when they said that Jonathan Gannon was going to be the chairman. You know, I'm sure that his intentions are honorable.
Yeah, every
However-
dollar comes in, he wants to spend right there.
However, so that was my week. This week, I don't think I have anything unless Zach has anything for me coming up. Yeah.
I can go next. Last week I had a major meeting. Everything's going well there. It was a really, really quick meeting. We're actually gonna keep meeting via Zoom. It works really well for all the board members. There's a couple doctors and nurses, so they're able to actually just Zoom right in from the hospital or McFarland and not have to leave. They're still looking for some staff, and then they're doing this canopy for out in the playground area for the kids, so they have some shade in that hot sun. And then I was in Des Moines Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for Leadership Iowa. It was our last get together. We spent quite a bit of time out at Camp Dodge. Colonel Michael Wu from that Iowa National Guard did a lot of presentations and making sure, you know, if you weren't familiar with the programs and the different programs that are offered within Iowa as far as Air Guard, all of it. So learning the different breaks from that. And then we got to do Soldier for a Day, which is interesting. So you're in the simulator for the helicopters, and we did a ride on the Black Hawk around the Capitol. And then
That's pretty cool.
it was amazing. It was pretty amazing. And then the next day we did go to FCO, which I've heard of FCO, but I never really knew what it was. So that was neat to see their operations. They do a lot of international stuff. And then we had some economic development. We went to the East Union Depot, the Women of Achievement Bridge, the new skate park, and then PEO. It was kind of a mixture of government and economic development. So we spent quite a bit of time at the Capitol with President Chapman. I'd never had the honor of meeting him, got to meet him once, and then I got to go see a couple different rooms. We did not go in the library, but we did climb the Capitol, so we were at the top, so that was pretty neat. And then, as Scott had said, we met with Wendy at the ambulance department to set up to pull the board members in. And we will be doing that this next week, or no, tomorrow at 5:30. And I think that is all I have for next week is the ambulance meeting.
I'll go next or last year. Monday I did meet with Dean and Becky to set up for the agenda here today, the program. Thursday had a new opportunities board meeting. We approved the financials, accepted our 990 for the year. We did go through the financial reports and all the reports for Head Start. They were given to us. Policy Council does not meet in the summer, so we did get the reports to look at them. We had some updates on COVID policies and procedures. The opportunities is getting $415,000 from the ARP funding, which is kind of unusual. So a lot of nonprofits don't, but I think that's being as an action agency and some of the scopes they particularly Head Start. So there's some things they're going to do to help use that money to prevent another epidemic and try to do that. We had a discussion on No Before, which I think you all should know that name before. So New Opportunities is also taking that business on to do their testing for cybersecurity. So we're having them do that out there. They did have some discussion. We are going to try to, chapter 24 is we're going to do a license for mental health center process. They're in the process of that. Most of that is to help more for ways to get some of their funding back through whatever their substance abuse and any mental issues that they do cover. We did approve a LIHEAP supplemental contract of $408,359. That's usually always the case. They give you a contract when you add some more on. And the same thing with DOE weatherization assistance. We got another $22,000 from them, and we did approve that. Okay, Friday, I did have a Zoom meeting with Mike Hoagie Weaver. He's come back with some different figures. He should have sent that to you. So, we were supposed to have a meeting today at noon. That got canceled sometime Friday night because when I got home, I seen it. He evidently had a noon meeting with this state baseball thing going on at noon, so that's where he's at. Then I did meet with Zach a little bit one day and talked to him for a few hours.
And that comp board meeting is. Communications is.
August 9th, that's what I set up.
August, yeah.
So then I was supposed to meet with her, it's at 1 o'clock with Studio Middle, and they're gonna do a tour of the courthouse. And I might just have Zach do that with them, so.
I was gonna ask, do I have to do that, or does Zach have to do that, or are you gonna do that? I prefer Zach to do that.
That's what I was planning on having a conversation. I was figuring on getting here at noon, and I would do this, and for a short while, I'd have him take over, but I got other plans. I wanted to get out of town and Dodge, and then these needs kept piling up somehow. I'm like, yeah, it off and say. All right, that is it. Oh, the other thing, we did get this letter today, this envelope, and it's came from Iowa Economic Development Authority, and I don't know why it's the City Development Board. They're having a meeting in regard to the voluntary annexation that you guys remember out here at the landfill. So why that's going to the state, I have no, it does not explain anything about it, but they're having it's gonna be July 14th at 1 o'clock. You can teleconference in if you need to. There's a code here to access it. I don't see any reason to do that because we basically signed off on that already. Did you get a copy of this too?
Well, I don't know, there might be one upstairs, but I'm gonna run this one out to,
It's probably the same thing. Right?
yeah, this one is actually Carroll County South Waste, and it got mailed here, so I'll have to drop this off out there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, why don't I give you our copy?
That's
and you
fine.
can file it.
There's a land without the consent. That's why
Who's that?
it'd be filled as.
Oh, is that why?
So that's why it's given to you.
Oh, they're
They don't
opposing the
belong.
annexation.
Yeah,
They don't know it yet.
and they would be highland.
Do you have any
Okay.
upcoming meetings?
Do I have any upcoming meetings? Just the one today at noon at their council and 1 o'clock. All right, is there any comments from those in attendance or online?
There is no comments online.
You have any comments, Ben?
Did you say no?
No, there's no comments.
I'm asking you if you have a comment.
I think you guys are great.
Okay. Well,
There you go, Ben.
can you put some sugar on that butter?
What do we got?
Okay, is
Thanks,
there,
Ben.
Courtney, you got anything?
Right now, all I have is for next week, we are gonna meet on the 6th, Tuesday, so everybody, will show up on the 5th. Maple River Township appointment. That's all I
Oh, we have someone for that?
Yeah, someone for the Baumhofer.
Okay. All right.
That would have to be probably.
No, so we'll have to just kind of keep our ears open if nothing comes up. Sometimes when it is a holiday, there's not a lot going on, but I'll keep you guys up to date.
Sounds good.
If you, I don't get back to you, just give me a call. I'm gonna be longer, so. Okay.
With that, I'll go ahead and make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Contrary, motion carries.